Hi, everyone, and welcome to the very first episode of the Castle Club podcast. My name is Charlie, and I'm going to be your host of this podcast. And this first podcast is just for me to kind of introduce the new podcast, why I wanted to create this podcast, and what we're going to be chatting about on the podcast moving forward. So, I am a huge Disney fan. I've always been a Disney fan for literally as long as I can remember. And probably like many of you, if you're watching this, if you are a Disney fan or a Disney Parks fan, you probably spend a considerable amount of time, I know I do, watching Disney vloggers, listening to Disney podcasts. And I've listened to Disney podcasts since I was a teenager now. And I've always thought, you know what, I should probably start a podcast because I've got a lot of experience with Disney. And it's just something that's always fallen off my radar. And I thought, no, here we go. We're going to rip the band-aid off. We're going to get it started. I have a couple of cool Disney travel events and plans for this year. And I've just come off the back of a year of quite a few exciting Disney travel plans. And I really want to take you guys on those journeys with me. So I do want to try and vlog as much as I can on those journeys, share some really helpful, useful tips. I will be undertaking those on my own, some solo trips as well. So it's just a really good opportunity to get some great kind of insight into what will be the Disneyland resort this time around, and just really offer some tips and tricks that have really helped me along the way, as kind of an experienced Disney parks goer as well. As I'm sure many of us who love Disney parks, kind of, I guess, label ourselves as the go-to Disney person in their kind of friends, families, colleagues. So I really kind of just wanted to create a bit of a space where I could do some kind of topic-driven podcasts, some current news if some big news comes out, but I know there's plenty of Disney kind of podcasts and pages that are really centered around the latest news, and they do a fantastic job at that. They live in the Orlando area and they are so up to date with all of the latest news. So I don't really want to try and replicate what they're already doing. They already absolutely nail that. Of course, if there's any massive kind of news things coming out, we will cover them on here. But really for me, I wanted this to be some kind of tips, tricks, trip overviews, kind of current changes that will affect your upcoming trips. And I really want this to become a space where you can ask any questions that you have that you will find beneficial for me to cover in the podcast. You can do that on the Spotify polls and questions, which I'll make sure are available on Spotify if you're listening there. Or if you're watching on YouTube, then you can make sure that you are commenting on the comment section as well. And I'll get back to as many comments as possible. And if there's a couple of repeated questions, I will make sure that we podcast on those topics too. So a little bit about me. So my name, as I said, is Charlie. I live in the UK, and I have been visiting Disney parks since I can remember. My first Disney experience, my first Disney holiday was when I was 3 years old. And I have been hooked since then. I think, like many of you that probably love Disney parks, it feels like it's ingrained in my identity, right? And I think I'd love for this to become a bit of a place where we can all just come together, because probably there might be many people in your immediate life that kind of get that. I don't know if that's just me. But Disney is just something that will always be full of nostalgia for me. It will always be, like many of us describe it, home. It will always be somewhere that I always come back to and holds so many memories. And I know will continue to hold so many memories in my life, and just brings so much joy to, I know, myself and so many of you guys as well. So my first Disney trip was actually to Walt Disney World when I was 3 years old, a huge family trip. We did the whole villa and big car and all of the Disney theme parks. And they are, real core memories for me. I still remember from kind of my eye line of being a 3-year-old and looking up and dancing with Minnie Mouse. That's just a core memory that is imprinted on my brain. I now have a white cockapoo who is snoozing to my right and probably does not want me to grab her to put her on the screen. Called Minnie, my childhood hero. She's named after Minnie Mouse. And they are just some memories that just fill me with so much joy. And throughout my life, we were grateful and lucky enough to go numerous times over to Walt Disney World every few years. I was an only child to begin with, and then my sister came along, and then my cousin, and we've all kind of, the family's expanded and grown. We've had these experiences together. And it's always been that place where when we are there, we hold the best memories. We all just forget while we are there. We can just be completely present, childlike, have fun. And, even from members of the family that might have, really, really serious jobs, it's that time where everybody can just have fun and be a kid again and have a laugh. And yeah, I was really, really fortunate as a child to go every few years. I've actually, and I probably should have calculated this before I did this podcast, but if you're watching on YouTube, I will put it on the screen when I've actually worked out how many times I've actually visited the Disney parks. But I've visited Walt Disney World many times since then. I actually spent some time as a cast member in Disney World 10 years ago, actually, this summer. This time 10 years ago, I would have been heading out there. I did the Disney College program. I was very, very lucky to do that. Probably not so lucky the fact that I ended up in Vista Way. This was way before Flamingo Crossing was a thing. And my sister is currently just finishing her Disney program now and living in Flamingo Crossing. And the accommodation looks miles better than we had back in the day. But I have some incredible memories from being a Disney cast member in Walt Disney World in Epcot as well. I've also visited Disneyland Paris countless times. I used to be an annual pass holder at Disneyland Paris until the system changed a couple of years back, which I'm sure we may cover and get into on a future podcast. And also dance in Disneyland Paris as part of the Magic Music Days program one summer with my dance school as well when I was about 15, I think 16. So that was a long time ago now, 15, 16 years ago. So I have some real core memories of being part of Disney in terms of being a guest, a cast member, affiliated dancer, that so many different ways. Does really feel like it's ingrained in my identity. I've also been really, really fortunate to visit Disneyland Resort in Anaheim as well. I actually visited Anaheim the first time in September last year, and I've been fortunate to actually revisit again twice, and I'll be going back again this summer, and I'll be bringing you guys with me. And I visited, first of all, with my now partner. We had a fantastic time. We have decided that, and we have been to Walt Disney World together and Anaheim together, and we've decided that by far Anaheim is our favorite. DCA is our favorite park by far. I then revisited back on my own just for a day whilst I was spending some time in California, as I'm currently back and forth between California and the UK. And again, when I completed a High Rocks competition, which was at the Convention Centre by Disneyland last month, the month before, about 6 weeks ago. And I'll be back in the summer for 1 or 2 days as well, as I will be out there for a few weeks over summer. And I'm very fortunate to be in the position where I can work from wherever in the world. I'm a nutritionist full time. I run my own business, and I'm very fortunate I can work from my laptop. So that means that I can obviously take my laptop, do some work in California. I don't have to take that break from work and can kind of visit the parks at the weekends, and also don't have to take a break from work and a break in income to be able to do that, which is really, really handy as well. So I just really want to bring you guys with me as I kind of go through that process. And the trip that I have planned in the summer, as I say, will be to the Anaheim Resort, which I can't wait for. As I say, that'll become my favorite park by far. And you know what? Experiencing the parks on your own is definitely a different experience. Like I said, I've been with family so many times. I've lived there on my own. And that was my first experience of the Disney parks on my own, was when I was living over in Orlando, because there would be times where some of my other housemates were off. The situation when I was living in Orlando doing the Disney College program was different to the current setup at Flamingo Crossing now. There were 6 of us living in a flat. So I had 5 other housemates. And there was probably times where, the odd 1 or 2, we would have days off together, or our schedules would overline. But there was many days where I'd have days off and all of the girls were working on different shifts. So it wasn't always the case that, we could go in as, 1 or 2 of us and book a dining reservation and make a day of it. And it was great when that happened. But it didn't always happen that frequently. So it became the case of, we've got access to the theme park. So we kind of just embraced getting on the bus and doing our own thing. And that was my first experience of doing the parks on my own. And it was actually a cool kind of different experience. And of course, it's so great to share the parks with other people, with children in the family, with multi-generational families where you can see my 80-odd-year-old nan getting so excited about meeting Mickey Mouse in the same time as, a younger family member. I've got so many memories with my partner, who, he now really enjoys the parks, and we have so much fun together, and it's just like we are kids again. We have so many great memories. But the parks can also be really fun alone. And I think it's really important that, we just embrace all of the different ways that we can enjoy the Disney parks. And if it becomes the case that I'm over there for work and it's either do it alone or don't do it at all, we're going to do it. And we may as well bring you guys with us as well. So yes, my next trip will be alone, DCA and Disneyland Resort. and I'm really looking forward to it. Part of that trip as well, I've also booked to go to the Disney Studios in Burbank because they have opened that up to D23 members, and I'm a D23 member. And so I will be heading out to Burbank to the Disney Studios, which I've never done before and has been, as I'm sure for many of you who are Disney fans, a lifelong bucket list thing for me to be able to go to the original Disney Studios. I don't know how much of that I'm going to be able to film. That's not until August. Actually, say it's not until August. It's July now. Wow. That's next month. So both these things are next month. I'm not sure how much of that I'm going to be able to film, but I will obviously vlog as much as I can of it. I'm so excited for that day. And it's going to be absolutely iconic. So I cannot wait to explore the Disney Studios, and hopefully potentially maybe run into some familiar faces along the way as well. So that's going to be a great trip. As I say, I'm also a nutritionist, so I have a really big passion for well-being, health, nutrition, fitness, and I'm a keen runner. So this month, I'm hoping to get into the Disney Princess Half Marathon at Walt Disney World, which will mean potentially another Disney trip in February. It's February, not March, in February. And that will obviously be for the Disney Princess Half, which then will be another trip that you guys can come along to as well and experience my first Run Disney event. Actually, no, I'm lying. It's not my first Run Disney event. And I've literally just got my old medal out to be able to pop it up on my wall. I actually did a Run Disney event in Disneyland Paris in 2019, but they haven't brought it back to Paris since COVID. So that's really frustrating because, of course, it would be really nice to be able to do something that's not transatlantic. So Disney, if you are listening, please bring the race days back to Paris. And that was an incredible experience. We did the 10K. But yes, I'm really hoping to do my first American Run Disney, which will be the proper half marathon, and getting the experience of kind of running through the castle, etc., which will be amazing as well. So fingers crossed I can get onto that on the 30th of July. And then, yeah, I'll bring you guys along if so. So that's kind of my Disney plans for the year. And I just thought, you know what, whilst I'm going to be doing some solo trips, might as well vlog, make the most of it, and just kind of share my tips with you along the way as well. As I say, I'm going to probably be doing these podcasts in a little bit of kind of series of different tips and things. And you know what, if any news drops along the way, we will discuss it. If we want any guests on, we will get them. But this is going to be really kind of a source of trip reports, handy tips and tricks for the different Disney resorts, because as you know, if you have been to even like Disneyland Paris and Walt Disney World, they are so different and we have to kind of deal with them in a different way and plan for them in a different way. So yeah, I'm going to be breaking everything down for you, from travel to hotels to park tickets to optimizing your time in the parks to what is worth it, what's not, dining reservations, parades, shows, everything that you need to consider. Because as we know, Disney planning can be a marathon in itself, and things go smoothly when we do it well, right? And it's funny because my partner always says, "Oh, that was really smooth." And I think, yes, because I've been planning it to a T and making sure it is. But when you know the right way to plan, when you know the right way to go about it, it can completely change your Disney experience. And for the amount of money it costs to go to parks, again, I'm quite fortunate that I go solo or, with my partner, and we don't have kids at this point. And I know it's a completely different experience when you're having to get the bigger hotel rooms or more hotel rooms, paying for more flights. It's a huge investment to go on these experiences. You want to make sure that you're as best informed as possible. You are getting as much for your money as you can, and you're having the best time. So I really want this page to become that kind of source of information for you guys. And yeah, I hope that you guys really enjoy it along the way. And if there is anything that you have any questions on, whether it is the parks, whether it's the Disney College program, anything like that, I'll see if my sister will come along and do an updated Disney Parks program podcast with me, and we can kind of talk about the differences as well. Then just fire away, and I'll make sure that I cover these, obviously get back to you in the comments, but cover these in future episodes as well. So yeah, thank you so much for being here. If you aren't actually familiar with us, we do have an Etsy store as well. And if you are a listener of the podcast, you will get lifelong discount on the Etsy store. So we are the Castle Club Boutique on Etsy. And we do Disney-inspired merchandise, trip-inspired merchandise, personalized trip t-shirts. If you have kind of personal designs or adjustments that you want us to use, then we are always all ears. Drop us a message. We also do Swiftie inspired accessories for the Eras tour, because those of you that are Disney fans, you probably like a little bit of Taylor Swift as well. I know I do. I'm fresh from the Eras tour in the UK, so absolutely full of that. And yeah, you will get lifelong discount at the Castle Club boutique store as well if you use the code Castle Club Pod, and that'll give you 10% off. So I'm so excited to get this podcast off the ground. I will speak to you guys soon. And yeah, please do not forget to subscribe wherever you are listening. Obviously, the more listeners that the podcast gets, the more exposure the podcast gets, the more that we can do with it as well. So yeah, I'll see you guys in the next one, and have a magical day.